Welcome to Box Recaps. Today I'm going to explain the movie The BFG, released in the year 2016. The movie starts and we're taken to an orphanage, where we see the matron of this place, who is a middle-aged woman. She picks up some mail that has been slid underneath the door. We then see a 10-year-old girl who is still awake, despite the fact that it is midnight. She says the other people say that 12 a.m. is the witching hour, but she thinks 3 a.m. is the witching hour. They think that witching hour is when the boogeyman shows up. She looks out a window and sees 4 men drunkenly fooling around in the streets. Sophie yells at them and threatens to call the cops on them. Sophie walks back towards her bed and hears another sound from a different window. She sees cats running through the trash and knocking over a bin. She notices that there's a group of kittens as well. As she looks at them standing in her balcony, a very large hand picks the bin up. Sophie is shocked to see this, and this is when she sees the giant man walking by. She gasps, and he hears her. He now knows that he has been seen by the girl. He stands up and towers over the balcony, which is adjacent to Sophie's room. Sophie now gets scared and runs back into her room, but she forgets to lock the window of the room. The giant sticks his hand in the window and picks Sophie out of her bed. He sneaks through the streets undetected and runs all the way back to his home in Giant Country. The giant drops Sophie onto a table while he starts to chop up a gross-looking vegetable called a snozzcumber. Sophie makes a try to get out of the big house, but the giant catches her. He goes on to tell her that there is no way she is going to be able to escape. He tells her the only way she can get back to her orphanage in London is if she has wings, which she does not, so she should just forget about it. This giant is really old. He then goes on to put some veggies and Sophie in a pan, saying he's really hungry. The little girl thinks that the giant is going to eat her now, but he says he doesn't eat children or people. BFG says he took Sophie to keep her from spreading the word of a giant sighting for fear that the humans may hunt him down. He says that he does not want the other humans to come into their country because they might finish them off. He tells Sophie that she is now going to spend her whole life in this house, but she flips out. She tells him that she's going to run away, but the BFG tells her not to make the mistake of stepping out of this house because if she does, she will be eaten by the other giants. This is when Sophie and the BFG hear some other giants laughing out loudly. Sophie goes on to ask him if many giant men live in this place. He says yes, adding that all of them are really dangerous too, because they do not care about normal humans and eat them or swallow them for that matter. BFG also speaks with an unusual vocabulary, as we notice that his right and wrong is right and left. After Sophie understands that he is non-threatening, she starts talking to him normally. He then brings out a bottle from his pockets, and Sophie asks him what is that. He tells her that this bottle contains dreams. Sophie goes on to say that she cannot see dreams because she cannot sleep, as she has insomnia. BFG reads her a book, and she falls asleep. He then goes to his collection of dreams that he's captured in jars. Sophie is asleep in a boat that has been set up near the window of the big house. Sophie wakes up in the middle of the night and sees the BFG sleeping. She sees this as an opportunity to run out of this place, and the girl stupidly starts running. This is when a bigger giant shows up. This giant is way bigger than BFG, and he does not seem friendly either. He catches her right away. Sophie goes on to scream in horror, and this makes the BFG alert. The big giant, however, goes on to eat her. This is when we see that it was all a dream. Sophie is still sleeping where she was, and she sees the BFG standing in front of her. Sophie says to the giant that he is the one who has made her see that dream because she never sees dreams. The BFG tells her that he had to do it because it was a necessity. She had to learn a lesson so that she never tries to escape. He says that the other giants in this place are way bigger than him. The BFG himself is like a peanut to them. BFG drinks a fizzy green drink called Frobscottle, which has bubbles going down instead of up. It also causes whiz poppers, which are actually farts, and Sophie feels them like explosives, of course. Moments later, the same giant from Sophie's dream, Flesh Lump Eater, enters BFG's home. He and the other far taller giants frequently taunt BFG and call him Runt, since he is significantly smaller compared to the rest. He goes on to ask him whom he was talking to. The BFG says that he was talking to no one because he lives alone. The bigger giant, however, says that he did hear him talking to someone, and there is definitely someone else in this house. Flesh Lump Eater then says that he thinks he smells a human. He asks BFG to tell the truth, but BFG says that there is no one in there. He then tells BFG to tend his wound. As BFG does that, Sophie hides in the Snozcumber. Much to her bad luck, Flesh Lump Eater picks up the piece of Snozcumber in which Sophie is hiding. He nearly takes a bite until BFG sees that Sophie is hiding in there, so he stops the giant from eating it by reminding him that he hates vegetables. Flesh Lump Eater takes the frobscottle and leaves. BFG takes the goo-covered Sophie to clean herself. He gives her some spare clothes from a pile for her to put on. She puts on a red coat that belonged to another child that BFG had befriended until he was eaten by one of the other giants. The BFG is then about to leave when Sophie goes on to ask him where he's going. He tells her that he's going to work, but the girl keeps asking him what is his work. He finally goes on to reveal to her that he collects dreams. BFG then shows Sophie all the types of dreams he has collected. BFG is about to leave when Sophie tells him that she wants to come too. He says there is no way he's going to take her because there are other dangerous giants out there, and if they see her, she will be killed. She, however, keeps begging him to take her, and he finally agrees. BFG prepares to take Sophie to the hill where he collects dreams, but he has to pass Flesh Lump Eater and his band of giant goons as they sleep. BFG and Sophie sneak away, but BFG is caught by one of the giants. Sophie hides inside a truck. The giants begin tossing BFG around like a football. They go on to ask him where he is going, and he tells them he is on his way to some work. The other giants then tell him not to leave because they think BFG is going to rat them out to the other humans. They then stop hurting him when it starts raining, as they are terrified of it. As the other giants run to take cover from the rain, the BFG gets out of there, taking Sophie with him. They keep walking and go up a hill. They're now even higher than the clouds, and Sophie is fascinated by the scenery. The BFG tells her that he can even hear these stars singing. He tells her that he has the ability to hear everything in this world, even the ants. Sophie unintentionally leaves a blanket behind, which Flesh Lump Eater finds and sniffs, knowing there's a human around. They keep walking and come across a beautiful lake. They then go on to jump into the lake, which brings them into the realm of dreams. One particular dream whizzes by BFG, and he cannot catch it. Sophie manages to get it, and BFG says it is her dream. He then goes on to tell her that there was a time he used to be loved by someone. He says that today, all the people call him Runt, but there was someone who used to call him Big Friendly Giant, BFG. Sophie says that she too is going to call him BFG from now on. The two go into London so BFG can demonstrate how he gives people dreams. BFG puts a dream into his trumpet and gives a boy a dream where he receives a phone call from the US president. BFG likes seeing these kids happy. He's a good giant, which is why he takes all the good dreams to these people from the other realm. He says that he knows people live hard lives, so the best he can do for them is to give them good dreams while they sleep. She then goes on to ask him how old is he, and he tells her that he is as old as this world. The girl then asks him if he learned the dream thing from his parents, but he tells her that he never had any parents. BFG then goes on to say that they should get back. As he is about to take flight, Sophie goes on to ask him where is her blanket. When BFG realizes that her blanket is missing, he gets worried, as he realizes Sophie's blanket was most likely found by the other giants. He feels it's no longer safe for her to stay with him, since the other children that he took care of were eventually taken and eaten by Flesh Lump Eater and his friends. He says that his very good friend was eaten by those giants. That was the friend who taught him how to read and write, too. He says that he wanted to bring that friend back to his own world, but he got too late, and that poor boy was eaten by the giants. BFG returns Sophie to the orphanage. He tells her that he does not want her to be eaten by the other giants and leaves. She then goes back to the balcony where she saw him for the first time. She knows that BFG is still around, so she goes on to jump off the balcony, and before she falls to the ground, the BFG catches her. He again has to listen to her because she is just too adamant to go back with him, so he brings her back to the giant realm. They are now again back at the BFG's house. We see that all the other giants have been waiting for BFG to come back, because they are well aware that this man has a human living with him. The giants then go on to burst into BFG's home and begin trashing the place, letting his dreams run loose as they break things. BFG has had enough, and he decides to fight back this time. He cannot physically best them, but he can outsmart them all. He is well aware that they're scared of both fire and water, so he scares them away with fire and water. Sophie runs around the house and takes a look at different stuff out there. The girl comes up with an idea when she sees a portrait of Queen Elizabeth in BFG's home. Together they concoct a nightmare where the giants are taking and eating children, whereupon the queen will meet Sophie as she sits on the windowsill. After the dream is made up, the two head to Buckingham Palace and place the dream in the queen's head. She has a nightmare and wakes up. She's really scared because this dream was a really scary one in which she has seen the children in her country being eaten by the giants. She screams and ends up alerting her maid, Mary, and butler, Mr. Tibbs, right away. As the queen describes the dream, she describes everything to Mary and tells her that she is really worried. Mary, however, tells her that it was just a dream and that she should not be thinking about it. However, this is when Mary sees a newspaper headline mentioning the disappearance of children in London. Sophie then makes her presence known to the three of them at the window. Since the queen has already seen this in her dream, she allows it and then realizes Sophie is with BFG. Sophie calls for help, but he's afraid to come out because he thinks that these people are going to kill him if he shows up. The queen orders them to stand down, and Mr. Tibbs calls the royal guards out as BFG steps out. The queen makes it abundantly clear that no one is going to hurt BFG. Sophie formally introduces everyone to BFG, and she tells the queen they need her help. The queen has her staff prepare a meal for Sophie and BFG. BFG is elated to eat something other than snozcumbers for once. The queen brings in her soldiers, after Sophie explains that the giants in her dream are real, and that they are indeed taking children. The plan is to head into giant country and capture the villainous giants. The queen realizes that they are right. These giants could be dangerous, so she agrees to help them. BFG then pours a few glasses of frobscottle for the queen, Tibbs, some staff members, and even the dogs, and the next thing we see, all of them are farting. The next thing we see, they're all on their way to the giant country. No one knows where the giant country is, so BFG goes on to lead the way as the army follows him in the helicopters. They get there, and BFG decides that he's going to make a dream that will make the other giants regret all they have done in their lives. BFG and Sophie wait for the giants to be asleep, so they can plant nightmares into their heads. However, BFG left his trumpet behind. Sophie runs into the field with a jar of nightmares and lets them fly into the giants' mouths. Only Flesh Lumbeater isn't affected. He prepares to attack, but the soldiers arrive in time and capture him and the rest of the giants. They are dropped onto a remote island where they are forced to eat nothing but snozcumbers for the rest of their days, despite the fact that they hate it. The scene then changes, and we see that Sophie has found a home in the Queen's Palace under Mary's care, and the BFG is back to his home. He, however, can still talk to Sophie because he can hear everything in the world. Both of them are happy, and with that, the movie comes to an end. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.